Welcome to Ascension with A Course in Miracles. Today is March the 1st, 2023. And I call these Ascension with A Course in Miracles because there is something that I have discovered that has absolutely changed my life as I fix this setting over here. And that is that A Course in Miracles has taught me how to move out of the 3D world, how to begin the process of ascending, of stepping out of where we have been in the world that the ego has made. Now, when you study A Course in Miracles, you have to understand that you're looking at everything from two perspectives. There is the perspective of God, and there is the perspective of the ego. The ego is the human perspective. It is the idea that we are on this planet, that we are on this physical vessel, that I am a body, that the bodies are born and they die. Everything is temporary in the world of the ego. And it's designed that way because it's the total opposite of what God has created. Because what God has created is eternal and permanent. You cannot get rid of anything that God has created unless God decides that it doesn't want it anymore. So the Course in Miracles needs to be looked at as, number one, we are in the mind of God. We have never left that place. We're still totally, completely, forever an idea, meaning we're non-physical. So we are where we cannot get away from. So when we're talking about the ego in the 3D world that we are ascending out of, what we're ascending out of is a mindset that is dense, that is stuck in an old world view, that is the source of all of our suffering, is where we agree that birth and death are realities, where we agree that separation is a thing, because we see separate bodies and we hear of separate countries. All of that is only possible by mass conscious agreements by the masses. So as long as there's a mass agreement that we have made, a conscious mass agreement, we are participating in the proliferation of beliefs that are totally opposed to what God says is true. So when you look at the Course in Miracles, you are learning to train your mind to see things from two perspectives. Now, for a while, all of us who are doing this work, when we enter, there's a certain point where we realize that we feel schizophrenic. We realize I'm not real, but I'm having an experience like I'm real, where we recognize this is an illusion, but I'm dealing with it as if it's really happening. You recognize that you're eternal, but you're making the best of the years that you have in a temporary experience. So the mind is going to go through a process of being trained, and at the same time, it's going to feel very confusing. So when we are looking at the Course in Miracles from the perspective of God, we've got to also take into account that the experience that we're having with the ego has feelings. We have feelings. We have sadness, grief, anger, resentment, jealousy, revenge. All of those are emotions that are the result of the energy of love not being in motion. The more we suppress the love that we are, the denser and the more confined and constricted we feel. So humanity, for thousands of years, has been trained into believing things that are not true. And in believing these things that are not true by a mass agreement, then we have solidified this reality, which is an illusion. We've solidified it as our reality, and it takes time to unwind the mind out of that solidity so that we can move into the realms of light, into the realms of joy, of expansion, of being totally and completely in alignment with the truth of who we really, truly are. So today we're going to continue on what we started last week. And last week we went into chapter 16 in the course. And I teach from the Course in Miracles. I may start adding some things from two other books that were channeled by Jesus. I teach from them in my year-long programs that I call Mastery. That's where I take people who are serious about this work, and we dive in for a year. I've been doing this for 6 or 7 years. Some students have been with me almost every one of those years, which is really exciting. But this is the last year that I am going to be doing the mastery in a certain way. So what I will be doing next year is really more of a basic, an introduction to the Course in Miracles, the 10 characteristics of a teacher of God, which is what you must begin to understand is true about who you are to begin the process of mastery. So I'm kind of going to go back to help people learn how to become masters, where these people, they are masters. And this is our last year coming together in that way. We're going to do different things next year with that particular group because they already know all of this. And you know who I'm talking about. But we're going to continue in chapter 16. I am currently in the section is number 5. And section number 5, the title is The Choice for Completion. So you've got to make a choice to own that who you are is already full and complete. There is nothing that can be added to who you are as God created you, because God created you as itself, and there's nothing missing in God. Now, of course, the Course in Miracles wants us to understand what God is, and God is love. So you are really full of love. That's what you are. Your completion is in the acceptance that you are a loving being with creative powers. And our work is to extend that love and to create more to love. Really, bottom line, that's our work. That's our role. But our mind is traveling like we do at night, and we dream and we go to all different galaxies and places and do all kinds of adventures. Well, our human experience is an adventure that the Course says, as the mind that we're pure mind, intelligence, consciousness, energy, whatever you want to call it. As that mind, we are dreaming that we're here in planet Earth so that we can have this experience. Otherwise, if we weren't having the dream that we're specifically on planet Earth, we would be everywhere else. So think about it this way. As your mind begins to open up more and more, and you're accepting more of what is out there, that means you're coming closer and closer and closer to being fully awake. And that's the goal of A Course in Miracles. Well, let me not say it that way. 2 goals. One goal is for you to wake up in the dream, to at least while you're dreaming that you are on planet Earth and you're just a human, you wake up and have a happy dream. The other part that is absolutely possible is that you completely are awake. Then you don't need to be in this incarnated body. You don't need to be part of this dream. You totally, completely know that this is just a temporary experience. And when you have that death experience, or if you choose to exit at any moment, all you need to do is make a decision that this is no longer the game that you want to play, that you no longer need to experience separation from source. So either you wake up and realize, oh, I'm separate from source, but I can choose love over fear, or I don't need to be separate. I don't need that anymore. I am completely aware of the truth of who I am. And in that case, you cease to need to have a body. And we have had people, there are examples in the Bible, there are examples. Elijah dropped his body vessel in front of his I think he was assistant of some sort, apprentice of some sort, watched them turn into a ball of light. Because when you cease to need the density of the body, what you are is light that has been released. So you are basically the energy of love, light in motion. Back again, you express yourself, extend yourself. So as we are moving through different parts of A Course in Miracles, last week we touched on chapter 16, and we were in paragraphs 14 and 15. Today, we're going to go to paragraph 16, and we'll probably get through 17 as well. Okay, 16. The decision whether or not to listen to this course and follow it is but the choice between truth and illusion. That's it. We have only 2 choices: to accept the truth that is true always, which is real and cannot be threatened. We are non-physical. We are energy. We are pure, intelligent imagination, pure consciousness. Now, if that feels uncomfortable to you, then you might be on the earlier parts of the bridge, crossing over from the illusion of separation to the truth of oneness. And that's okay, because like a bridge has many, many steps until you cross it. The journey of awakening has many, many stages that we have to go through until we're solidly grounded. We build our house on solid ground, the solid ground of God's truth, where you no longer doubt it, because the truth is what you live by, and therefore you embody that truth. And as you embody that truth, you're being what you are, and there's nowhere else to go except for that. But if this idea that the decision whether or not to accept truth is opposite of illusion, is different, you're making a choice between those two. When you are ready to make that choice, you are going to be fully supported. This is a benevolent universe, because every one of us, everything that this world is made of, everything that this universe, that this multiverse is made of, is God expressing itself in all these different ways, in different levels of consciousness, in different shapes, in different densities, in different languages, in different heights, in different possibilities, because God is infinite. We have to get comfortable with God's infinity and give it permission to be infinite. This is why it's absolutely insane to think that God fits into one book, one religion. If God is infinite and we say that it only fits here, then it can't be infinite if it can't be there as well. So we are having to test a lot of our beliefs when we are crossing the bridge from separation to oneness, from illusion to reality. Now, when we're talking about illusion, it is not to deny that we have these physical bodies or that we experience ourselves as separate from one another, that there is this line over here and there's the audience over there, that there is a mom and there's a child, that there's a dad and there's a grandfather. We're not saying that those things are not happening. Those are experiences that we're having. But what we're denying is that that is our primary form of being. Our primary form of being is that we're energy. We're energy that has become densified by a choice to have an experience that is opposite to total, complete reality, and we move into the illusion of separation. When we flip that, then we can begin to see the illusion of separation for what it is. It's an experience. We're choosing to be here, to have this incarnation for a journey that could be joyful for some, and it can be very painful for others. We did not know that this was an illusion, so everybody had a mixed bag. As you begin to understand that this is an illusion, that this has power over you, you begin to take your power back and you begin to make the way, crossing that bridge to where power is real. And it is real through your conscious choice, your conscious use of it, as one who realizes that you are the creator of your reality. That's how this works. In a nutshell, that's how this works. So this continues. If you make that decision to shift, your life will change for sure. For here is truth. Making, it's a decision to, if you're going to follow Course in Miracles, you're choosing between reality and illusion, period. For here is truth, separated from illusion and not confused with it at all. Basically, that's what I'm saying. I'm separating for you what is real so that you can have a better understanding of it, and making what is illusion more easier to understand. So for example, it's an illusion. And because it's made up, illusion means made up. It's not real. It is an illusion that anybody has power over us. Totally made up. Our parents don't have power over us. Our government, they do not have power over us. That is, God didn't create it that way. The doctor does not know better than we do. The church does not know better than we do. The church doesn't get to tell us how to, whether or not we can connect with God. Those are agreements, mass consciousness. We have made agreements since a long time ago that that's what we were going to do. One person made that up, and a whole bunch of people for thousands of years, in cases, billions of people have agreed to believe that story. And when lots of people agree to believe that story, then we have what can be termed a mass delusion. So what we're doing is living, there's a little doggy over there barking, so mine might start barking in a little bit. Sandy, you stay quiet. Good girl. So we've got to get really clear that we've got to peel back all of our beliefs until we come to where the truth is. And the truth is always that everything that we are believing that was taught to us from the outside was made up by somebody on the outside, passed down generation after generation, and that's how we've been doing it. So here we are to stop confusing illusion and reality, and by knowing what is truth about each one. Yes, there is truth in the illusion. It's true we have agreed to make things up. It is true that we use those agreements made up to hurt each other. We also use those agreements to uplift each other. We do all kinds of things to make some feel higher and some lower. Some feel like they deserve and some that they don't. We do things where we punish those that we consider bad and we reward those we consider good. And I do this because when you understand that we're all the same, we're all equal, there is no good or bad in reality. The truth that we are is the same energy, the same physical energy that expresses itself. So how does good and bad happen? Well, because we have made agreements to do that. So when we stop confusing the truth from the illusion, we're coming closer to the liberation that is possible when you can see the illusion and choose to play there no more. All right, sentence number 3. How simple does this choice become when it is perceived as only what it is? For only fantasies make confusion in choosing possible, and they are totally unreal. Let me read this again. For only fantasies make confusion in choosing possible. We have created fantasies. We have made up stories. We have participated in creating this incredible just fantasy. You know, Disney World, they're known as masters of fantasy. They make up stories for us and we buy into them and we agree to them. And guess what? A lot of those Disney stories become the reality that we operate from, and they're fantasy. And what's fantasy? Something that's been made up. So one of the fantasies from Disney World is that, you know, there's a knight in shining armor that's going to come and save the damsel in distress. Typically, that is how it's portrayed. Do you realize that that makes male, female unequal? That puts one to having power and one disempowered, and that the one that's disempowered gets her power from the one that has it, so that you have to get it from somebody else instead of having it yourself all along, and the one just reminding you that it is there just by, you know, maybe in like in a story, maybe comes close to the story of Snow White, where the prince kisses her. So love kisses and reminds the one that was asleep in the illusion that they do have the power. But we have used movies to create what we believe are fantasies. So for example, The Matrix. We all went and watched The Matrix and we thought it was fantasy, made up by these two brothers. Wachowski brothers, I believe, is who created The Matrix. Later on, I went to discover that these were two brothers that were on a pretty deep path of awareness. And if I'm not mistaken, Course in Miracles is part of what they were studying. But anyways, I'm not going to digress because I don't have those facts. So I am going to stick with talking about fantasy. And the fantasy of The Matrix is that it gave us a storyline, a story that humans long time ago had been captured and had been turned into batteries. And basically they were being used to siphon work from them. They performed tasks, they did what they did, but they did not have power. And the agents made sure that they did not know that they were really a simulation, but the real human was stuck in this place that almost looked like a like a beehive, a honeycomb. Um, and their energy was being siphoned like it's a battery in these capsules. And this one character called Neo begins to see through the game, the illusion. And he was seeing that those who were trying to keep him in check were called agents. That would be the ego. The ego is that voice that tells you you can't cross the line. You cannot have the freedom that you think is yours. And then he had the voice of Morpheus, which is the voice of like the angel, the Holy Spirit, if you want to use Course in Miracles terms, letting him know you don't have to be stuck as a battery. There's more to you, but you have to free yourself. I can't do it for you. You have to begin to accept the truth of who you are and release yourself from the bondage of just being a battery, a source of work for others, and come to the place where you become where you don't become, you accept what you already are as God created you. And then we band together and we help other people do that. But even in the matrix, there was a spiritualized ego, meaning one who appeared to know the truth of who we are, who appeared to believe that we all deserve to be free. That one there, I don't remember his name, but that character is the one that sells out the group and basically gets these people, Neo and Morpheus lets the agents know where they are. Because all of us, while we're moving down this path to total liberation, which is to return to the truth of who we are, along the way, our ego gets spiritualized and it learns all the tricks. That's how humanity has been tricked for more than 2,000 years, thousands of years, into believing that we're less than what we are. Because there's enough consciousness that arises in humanity, and you begin to find your freedom. We've had all of those rebels, all of them, including Jesus, attempting to unplug themselves from the matrix. And what does the matrix do? Uses their teachings and turns it into religion. Not everything, a lot of it. So just as that one character turns in Neo and Morpheus, so do in our real world, our real illusory experience here, have in our mind the ability to use spirituality and still block ourselves from knowing the truth of who we are. That's why this takes time. This is not a journey that happens instantaneously, although it does. When you look at things from those two perspectives, from the level of reality, it's just a choice. Just choose to trust that what you are is non-physical, a thought in the mind of God. The minute that choice is done with total, complete conviction, the body ceases to exist for much longer, or you use the body deliberately just to, as Jesus did, to extend only love. Jesus had that awareness of the truth of who he was and spent 3 extra years on the planet using his body to extend love. So yes, you can stay here with your mind completely on what the Course in Miracles calls the borderland. You know the truth of who you are and you are grounded there, but you live in this world to bring love and light and assistance, as Neo did in the Matrix, to those who might want to wake up, unplug from it, take their power back, take their energy back. All right. So fantasies, for only fantasies make confusion in choosing possible, and they are totally unreal. So just as we make up movies that are not true, we make up agreements with each other that are not true. An agreement that is not true, that you need to give me something for me to feel accomplished, that relationships are transactional. I need to do something for you to see my value, for you to feel like I am worthy of your love. So we've made a lot of agreements that way. All the agreements that we've made, like with countries, this is my land, that is your land, these are my minerals, those are your minerals. Those are fantasies. Those are totally and completely made up by people who wanted to play the game of separation and take it even further into ownership, into borders, into divisions, and made the mental fantasies of separation into this reality physically to experience it. There's nothing wrong with that. However, those who are waking up and unplugging from the matrix don't want to continue to play those games because they're fantasies, they're made up. Why do you need a passport to go from one country to another when God gave us this planet totally, completely border free? Except for natural borders that we have to work our way through, water to land to mountain to whatever. Those borders are there only for us to have the experience of as an adventurer to cross them, but not to divide us and separate us. So the reality is that we are one being expressing itself in so many different ways on one planet that is given to us to experience collectively, not in separation and divisiveness, because if you have divisions and I own the minerals and you don't have them, then I can extort money from you. Now, if we're going to be operating from love, we can collaborate in trade as we used to do. But the way the game has been progressing with corporations owning everything and monopolies becoming fewer and fewer people at the top, and now the insanity of the World Economic Forum thinking that they get to own everybody, or the WHO, the World Organization of, I forget what the WHO stands for, of well-being or whatever that is, World Health Organization. They think that that's what it is, World Health Organization, WHO. I was thinking, wow, in my head, that they get to decide everything for everybody, but we are a diverse bunch of beings on this planet expressing ourselves uniquely, individually, totally, completely differently, because God is infinite. So as we proceed here in paragraph number 17, it says, this year is thus the time to make the easiest decision that ever confronted you, and also the only one. This year, how, when I'm guided to read whatever needs to be read and shared, whatever message wants to be transmitted through these words to make things a little either clearer or just go deeper, it always astonishes me. It doesn't surprise me, but it astonishes me the perfection of every single one of these transmissions for that particular day. Now, the transmission that we did, we've done 92, I think now. This might be 93. The one that we did, first transmission or the 20th transmission, may not be appropriate today, but that day, so appropriate. Although, if we were to listen to those things that were transmitted way back then, I am sure we would find nuggets of wisdom, gems in them for today. But here, this year is thus the time to make the easiest decision that ever confronted you, and also the only one. The easiest decision that ever confronted us is to stop suffering. Isn't that easy decision? To accept well-being. Isn't that easy? To accept love over fear, to accept freedom over this continued suffering and enslavement that is part of the ego game. So easy. Wouldn't you say that that's an easy choice? And it's the only decision that we ever have to make, because until we choose only to have that, we continue to experience its opposite. And again, from God's perspective, it's okay. We are still completely non-physical, and nothing really truly happens to the souls that we are. Here in the physical plane, to our body, it is experienced as pain and suffering. It is experienced as needing to become, needing to achieve and get and protect and climb the ladder and maybe abuse somebody to be able to make it to the top. So here in this world where we take the suffering to extremes, because we can. We have the ability to do that here. When we deny love, we can go as evil as we want to. And God doesn't punish anybody, because God, like that father that welcomes back the prodigal son, does not punish a single soul that is exploring all of what God has created as infinite potential. See, that is something that religion doesn't teach us. Religion teaches that we get punished if we're bad, but we're only taught that by a God, or we're only taught that by a church who is attempting to control. And if we operate from the place of totally and completely only knowing the truth of who we are, then we are never going to experience being punished by the creative source, because the creative source is love. But we've been conditioned that we get punished by the church, by God, by somebody above us, that we get punished by that power so that we will submit to that power and be controllable. So good to have you here joining us, Donna. Thank you for being here. So I'm just sharing from chapter 16. So the more that we become clear that the choice before us is so simple. It is not an easy choice, because to choose truth, you've got to look at all the lies that you have been living under. To choose truth and go into liberation, you have to look at all of the ways that you have believed in separation and created suffering. So we have to separate that which is the soul from our being that has never, ever been affected. This is the light that we carry. The light has never been affected. Now, what has happened to our light, what has happened to our soul, is it has been blocked. It has been dimmed. We have blocked our light. We have stopped shining brightly. We stopped being our joyful selves because we had experiences that were uncomfortable, and it caused us to pull back our light to protect ourselves. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that we have made. Now, it's part of the process. So we have to go through a forgiveness process. So when we go into protection, when we are protecting ourselves because there is harm happening, that's one thing. But when we protect ourselves because we're believing that we're weak, and if we don't protect ourselves, nothing is going to ever protect us, we participate in a mass consciousness idea that some are weak and need specific protectors. If our mind is not trained into understanding that that is not true, we will look for things to protect us in the outer world. We will look for a partner to protect us, a lover. We will look for a job, money, a status to protect us. We will look for drugs. We will look for something external to make us feel that we're safe, to give us what I used to know when I was younger as liquid courage came from a bottle. So many of us, if not all of us, and I'm going to venture to say pretty much all of us, have been trained into agreeing that some get to have more power than others. And because we grow up with that, even from the time that we're little, where we experience mom or dad or grandfather or uncle or teacher, preacher, government has power and I don't, our mind is diluted into believing something that is not true, that we think is true. That's what refers to in the previous paragraph as fantasy. So to be able to make the simple choice of retrieving our truth, we have to train our mind to begin to sort our beliefs. Now, before this time period that we're in right now, it was very difficult to question your thoughts unless something happened tragic, usually. Didn't have to be, but usually a big loss of a relative, a loss of love, a loss of money, a loss of your home, a loss of something. Then people might get curious about, okay, there's got to be another way. But for the most part, most people do not question their beliefs because we've been conditioned, again, part of the mass consciousness, an agreement that we participated in, that there's only right or wrong. There's only two ways to be. We do not teach in school that it is okay to not know. We teach you either know or you don't know, and that's a bad thing, which means you're going to be punished. Instead, we're not given permission to say, I don't know, I'm curious, can you teach me? And allow for a middle path of not being right or wrong, but just being curious, being open to other possibilities. Well, until recently, we had to operate in right or wrong, two ways only, black or white, and that's it. And if you get it right, you pass. If you get it wrong, you are a failure. Well, we have been supported, especially since the harmonic convergence. And Jesus is the one, actually, one of the original teachers who began to have us question our thoughts. And he began with a biggie. He began with having us question our thoughts about God. Because if we stop believing that God is a punishing God, we stop being afraid of being wrong. And the minute that you begin to realize that God is a loving God, that the creative source is a creative, it's not only is it creative, but it is loving, and it encompasses everything. It is male, it is female, it is holistic. If we give ourselves permission to really accept the truth that for 2,000 years Jesus was attempting to teach us of a loving God, we begin to gain our courage to question what humans have made up. As I said earlier, everything that we have been taught from the outer world, if we didn't bring it in as a child, we pick it up from the outside, has been made up by another human. And if we don't question their beliefs, we will always have to operate under their rights and wrongs. But when we begin to question the beliefs, we begin to discover that there's a whole new way of looking at things that emanates from within us, that we tap into a source of creativity, a source of intuition, a source of possibility that wasn't there before. So we are being bathed since the harmonic convergence with energies that are helping us find our courage, not by getting it from a bottle like liquid courage, or having to get married so you feel safe and protected, or selling your soul to the government and doing whatever they tell you to do. You begin to receive a knowingness. This is what the Course tells us, is when you know that you have tapped into the mind of God, you know. When you're learning, is because you're taking in information, but you believe it's coming from the teacher, it's coming from the book, it's coming from somebody outside, because that's how we've been used to learning. But when you know it, and you don't need anybody on the outside to validate it, you have tapped into your inner knowing, you've tapped into the mind of God within. And that is what is happening. More and more people are finding a certainty inside, and they're pushing back against the system. Why? Because they did exactly what it says here. This year is thus the time to make the easiest decision that ever confronted you, and also the only one. The only one decision that we need to make is to accept the truth that is true about us. That means to accept that we are already created not only equal, we were created free, and we were created to be happy, and we've been created eternal. So if we accept the truth of who we are as God created us, first by understanding what God is, the truth about God, not the made up fantasies that have been handed down to us over generations by people who made that up, that we got conditioned, again, mass consciousness, trained into submission and not question authority. Do you realize that the Course in Miracles says that we have one problem and only one problem, and it is the authority problem? Meaning that when you listen to God inside, you don't need to listen to anybody outside. Sure, if it makes sense, yeah, it's okay to follow agreements if they make sense. But when you listen to the authority in you, it does not guide you to do nonsensical things. And we have been witnessing over the last couple of years a lot of nonsensical things that we have been participating, not we, as in all of us, many have been participating in doing what external authorities say, not what their internal authority is stating. So there's only one choice to be made here. And it is a simple choice. If you prefer freedom over bondage, if you prefer truth over illusion, if you prefer God over ego, that's what makes it so simple. And then it goes on to say in sentence number 2, you will cross the bridge into reality simply because you will recognize that God is on the other side and nothing at all is here. You know, I talk about the bridge all the time. We're crossing a bridge. Every one of my classes, we talk about a bridge because you're choosing to go from ego to God. It's a journey. You choose to believe in fear-based thoughts, and you only want to believe in love-based thoughts, it's a journey to cross that bridge. And the reason it's a journey is because you have to look at all of your beliefs and question, do you want to continue to believe your opinion of that situation from fear or from love? And as we cross the bridge, we are facing the stored trauma that we have experienced precisely because we stopped believing in ourselves. And others were not believing in themselves. Others who forgot that they are loving beings did unloving things to many. And those that were the recipients of those unloving things believed that there was something wrong with them, and then they closed down, they shut down. And that is what we are healing. We are opening ourselves up. Those who shut down open up in whatever pace they open up, but they're going to cross a bridge. Now, everybody, as it says in here, has a choice, and it's always the same choice, but we make it over and over and over again. One step at a time, we make that choice to believe truth or illusion, to hold on to the idea of separation and bad person out there, and I'm the victim, or I'm the good person and they're the bad person. However you want to look at it, anything that keeps us in separation is part of the illusion. It's part of the experience that we have when we take on physical bodies, when we incarnate. When you accept that the being that you are before incarnation is also the soul that you are while you're incarnation, you're cultivating a relationship with a part of you that is eternal and powerful. And that's what this is saying. It is saying it is impossible not to make the natural decision as this is realized. That's the last sentence in that paragraph. It is impossible not to make the decision that as you cross the bridge, you realize that the only reality is God. The only reality is love. But so many of us tolerate fear, tolerate separation, tolerate haves and have-nots, good and bad. We tolerate that because we have participated in a mass agreement that that is how we're going to operate with one another. So it's going to take humanity quite a while. I'm of the opinion that it's going to take at least 3 generations for us to make new agreements based on love. So we have agreements that are mostly based on fear. You better not attack me or I'm going to attack you. That's pure fear. And we operate that way. You know, it used to be that we would have the police in the community. I don't know if any of you guys ever watched the show called Pfeiffer was the sheriff in there. I think I can't even remember the name of it, but anyways, it was an old-timey police show, and then it was in the community. Mabry, I think it was the name of the community. But anyways, these people who were the officers, and they were maintaining the peace because they knew everybody. Everybody knew them, and they were all friends with one another. They were family in so many ways. And people didn't do bad things there to hurt one another. Sometimes bad things happened because people were careless. They were caught in a bad situation, and things would happen. But inevitably, it was all about helping each other move through whatever was happening that could have been termed negative and come out with a positive outcome. That was the police that operated with love. That would be the peacekeepers that are there to promote peace, that are talking to the community, policing by walking the beats in some of the towns that I remember hearing that's what the police did, because they would know everybody. There were so many apartments or high rises, condos or whatever, like in dense cities like New York City. They knew the people, and they were being loving. They were being helpful. They were being caring. They were there primarily promoting love, promoting peace, promoting respect for one another. But in the world of the ego, where police is used for fear, it is, look at my guns, look at my military outfit. You better be afraid of me because if you're afraid of me, then you'll do what I want you to do. And that's not the world that we are going to be headed to. So the world that humanity is moving to by choice. That's exactly what this is saying. This is the year. This is the year 2023. To me, this is the year where the line has been drawn in the sand. So how perfect that I opened this up. And that's what it says in this paragraph 17. This year is thus the time to make the easiest decision that ever confronted you, and also the only one. Because once we make the choice for love, once we make the choice for truth, once we make the choice for reality over illusion, the mind flips from being in service to fear to being in service to love. That's what is going to happen here. Now, it's going to take a while for the masses to become trained in this new way of thinking, but it starts with those of us who start. It started thousands of years ago. 2,000 years ago, Jesus showed us the way. Many followed those steps. Even to this day, I would say that we are in the millions, if not close to a billion, of people who realize that what is happening is not loving. I would say more than a bill. I would say probably the majority of the people on the planet realize something is off, but too many still are wanting to solve the problems with the same minds that created them. So we are in the midst of seeing so much be exposed, because the Course in Miracles says it. We have to bring the darkness to the light. I didn't fully understand what that meant until I began to see what is happening in the world in the last couple of years, specifically since I'm going to say the pandemic. When I began to see things that I have been studying coming out into the light. So for example, right now, we have people saying, but because they're authorities, because it's either the CDC or it's the New York Times. What is that magazine called? I don't read the newspaper, so the names are not top of mind. But all of these well-known magazines and newspapers and TV stations are saying things today that the same thing was said a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and those people were called either crazy, conspiracy theorists, that they were lying. And now all of a sudden, the same thing, the exact same thing. Now, all of a sudden, this is news. This is true. So when we begin to look at how quick we are to be right or wrong, back then, what was right today is wrong. Back then, what was wrong today is right. Who makes those decisions? This is why this is the year to begin to see the things coming out that are nonsensical. As it said in the previous paragraph, they're fantasies. It says here, for only fantasies make confusion in choosing possible. So as we continue to allow for our minds to be confused by what the outer world says, we are not going to come into the place of clarity, which is to come inside and begin to listen to the voice within. Now, while we're crossing the bridge, the voice within will meet us where we're at. And if we're at the beginning stages of the journey, that voice for God is not going to tell us to do something that it's going to tell us towards the later part of the journey. We will be guided step by step by step until total and full release is accomplished. But the voice will be consistent. Only love is real. So whether you apply love at the beginning stages or love at the end stages, that is ultimately what you are going to be choosing to do, to accept that you are a loving being, so that we all can co-create a new earth based on love. But the steps, the processes, the decisions that we make will be inspired at the level that we're at, because we can't give a third grader homework that we would give somebody in a PhD program. So it is all done gradually with one outcome: to liberate us from the illusion of separation that has us operate in fear and think that that's okay, until we are totally committed, all of us, to love, and then we operate from oneness. So that's these 2 paragraphs that we got to cover today. If anybody has any questions for whatever you caught, whenever you joined, go ahead and unmute yourselves. Let's chat. And if not, I am so grateful that you were here. And if you want to see more of these episodes, you can find it on YouTube. Miss Donna, how are you?
Hi. I'm doing great. I am heading up to Helen, Georgia, and working with the respite center this week until coming back Monday. And Pam is coming tonight, and Thomas and Iris, so they're all coming up to stay with me. So I'm so grateful. It's just beautiful. I get free Airbnb. People can come. They pay for my food, they pay for my gas, and they pay. So it's just beautiful, and I do it whenever I want to.
Well, I love that. See what you've manifested. You see, everybody who hears this woman manifested something amazing. So can you. So what's up, Miss Donna? What can we talk about here in this class?
Well, so what we can talk about that's coming up for me is, you know, just getting to a bigger level of what you were talking about and really trusting, you know, my higher self, higher power, stepping into the fifth, and doing it more often, doing it a little, you know, more freely, doing it with choice, doing it with fun, doing it with ease. And it's, you know, it's a process, but it's happening. And right now, you know, there's some change because of the getting the house ready to sell, and then move in and where, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So it's exercising this big time right now. So yeah.
Well, it is. It's a process, but the choice is always the same. The choice is to trust that we are fully supported. The choice is to trust that we are creating our reality. So when the mind is trained in expectation, as the Course in Miracles says, we're entitled to miracles. If we are making the choices from an expectation, well, when the house is going to sell with fun and ease, the next move is going to happen with fun and ease. If we are consistent in that choice, that's why in this section it talks about that. Let me find this here. That for only fantasies make confusion in choosing possible. Fantasies are the made up lies that we have been believing. Oh, it's going to be difficult. Who said? Who made up that things have to be difficult?
Right. Right.
That is going to be hard. Who decided that things are going to be hard? The people who wanted to sell us things to try and make it easier. So the more that we get comfortable with changing our thoughts, so that what it is that we desire, we are with no confusion, with no back and forth, solidly ground ourselves in the expectation of only the good. That is what we are crossing the bridge to the fifth dimension, is so that we can do things from our godly self, which is our goodly self. When we all know that God is love and God is within all of us, and it is the creative source that powers us, nobody needs to compete with anybody else because we all have the same power. Nobody will need to be higher or lower than another because we will be equally endowed by the Creator with the exact same abilities to manifest, to do whatever we want. That is what the fifth dimension is. There's going to be no fighting. That's not even a thing in a place where everybody knows that they're equally as powerful, free to use their powers. And when you do it from love, nobody will do anything that affects anybody else. Today, while we still live in the world that appears to be run by a few that think that they deserve, that they should be the haves and everybody else is the have-nots, we are working through those lies, those limitations, those fantasies. We are having to find the courage to step up to those things and say no. As you have heard me say around I haven't done Social Security, or not Social Security, I haven't paid income taxes in years. And I don't mind putting it out there because I have discovered that that is not part of our founding fathers' uh, what they founded this country on for Americans. And I am an American, so I'm living in a world that in this particular country, I abide by the Constitution, and the Constitution does not allow for that. So people can say, but it says it's in there. Well, have you researched? Are you looking at the same Constitution
It
that our
doesn't
founding
mean it's
fathers?
right.
Are you looking at the same Constitution that the founding fathers wrote? Like, are we looking
Right.
at the same, when we look at the Bible, are we looking at the same teachings that Jesus gave, or are we looking at things that have been altered? So as we begin to become more curious, we begin to discover more of that which was in the dark. This is why we have to bring the darkness into the light. We got to bring these things out for us to look at. And I've done enough research. And so there is zero fear for me around that. There was in the beginning, the first time that I decided not to file, I was afraid because I was breaking the mass consciousness that I was supposed to do that. And that affects my credit score. Who made up credit scores? I remember my grandparents getting loans from people never having a credit score, ever. So
Yeah.
where did
Yeah.
that come from? So when we work with people with integrity, when we really get back to that which makes us the same, we are finding little by little the tribe where we loan money to each other, where we help one another, where we support one another, because we have learned to trust each other, because we know we're all coming from the same place, and that is from the truth that is true always, which means we're listening to the voice for God. And the voice for God will never, ever, ever ask any of us to do anything that is hurtful to another child of God. So the process, yes, takes time, but every time you make that choice to not listen to the fears and to imagine instead what would be the good in this, what could be the joy in this, you solidify in your mind the why you want to cross the bridge and get to the other side, where you build your house on solid ground, the solid ground of reality, the solid ground of truth, the solid ground of love and equality. And that's it.
That's good.
So you just make that choice again and again and again. But it's
I
one
love it.
choice.
I love it. And it's beautiful to see too, because um, there's big changes that are happening with the younger ones, the millennials and stuff, because they don't have to be like, I have to win, so you have to lose for me to win, so I'm going to be better. Millennials are like, it can be win-win. They're bringing in the tribe as it is. So it's a lot of beautiful things happening.
They are. And I heard most of what you said, but it was breaking up a little bit. Yeah, those younger generations, they are coming in. And here's the beautiful thing. The older generations, with our greed, with our haves and have-nots, with our need to accumulate and become somebody, and he who dies with the most toys wins, that older generation with that mindset of acquiring and hoarding and having and whatever, and things began to increase in price. And of course, we know that a lot of that is manipulation, made it so difficult that these younger people can barely buy anything. They can barely have an independence because of the greed that has been here on the planet. Well, those younger kids are not having it. They are pushing through that. They're going to find ways, the ideas of tiny homes, the ideas of tribal living, the ideas of going back into living at home with your parents, generations helping one another. I'm doing it now with my daughter. So the solutions are available, because when we tap into source, we are given new ideas, but we cannot change what's here by doing the same old thing, which is why what's not working is being brought into the light for us to choose again. And as this paragraph says, this is the year to make the easiest decision ever. Do we listen to the voice inside? And the thing about listening to the voice inside is we've got to learn to trust that when people say, well, that's the voice inside, that we respect their voice. You know, I've had so many people when I tell them this is my guidance, they're like, well, that guidance is wrong. How do you know it's wrong? If it's my guidance, it's my guidance. So we have to develop a level of trusting one another, of respecting one another. So as billions cross the bridge to the other side, well, there's a lot that we need to talk about. And there has to be a willingness to be open-minded. There has to be a willingness to have conversations that move from the surface into the deeper parts, which is, how are we feeling? That we also leave the surface part of emotional reactions and go into the deeper part of the thoughts that we have, the beliefs that we hold. Instead of arguing about what we believe, let's discover, where did that belief come from? Because if we're willing to really question every belief, we will see that they were made up. And if those beliefs that are not serving us were made up, let's make up some new ones that do serve humanity, that are more in alignment with who we are as God created us. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I'm so glad that you joined and kept me.
It's so good.
Yes.
Oh.
Mr. Cristo, good to have you here. I know you just caught the tail end, but did you hear anything that sparked something?
Hi,
Awesome.
Krista. Look at you. Where are you?
Yeah. Well, as you might perceive, I'm sitting in the dark here in South Africa, but fortunately, I know I'm connected to the light. I am the light.
You are the light.
There we go.
I'm shining my own light, and I've got support systems around me.
You
must be load shedding.
I'm load shedding. I'm in a load shedding schedule now. But I came in when you also said, you mentioned something to the effect that if we open ourselves to our guidance, we are met where we're at. And I recognize that so much, because I know parts of me are still rooted to a degree in the third dimension, and my consciousness is in the fifth dimension, or whatever height I can reach there. And I know I'm bridging across all the time, trying to loosen myself up through my guidance, and just remaining connected, as you mentioned. You can't really go wrong. Uniquely for myself, my messages are for myself, and I know they are not the same for everybody else. And I need to trust that, because we all cross the bridges in a different way. Some swim across, some trot across, and some crawl across. But I know that I have my own way to keep on bridging the gaps that I need to bridge, and as long as I listen to my guidance. And sometimes I hang out and smell the flowers on the left side and the right side, and then I get pulled back in again.
Well, that level of honesty is what is so beautiful, because yes, we have to listen to our own individual guidance, and each of us has clusters of beliefs that support a story. And I maybe have one belief that is similar to yours in this area, but I may have different beliefs in this area. So I'm sorting beliefs from different places. You and I both grew up in different countries, not in the US, and we have beliefs that pertain to that particular country. We tolerate certain things, like in South Africa, you tolerate load shedding, which means that you tolerate a couple hours out of the day you don't have electricity. And so in your belief system, that's okay. It used to be part of my belief system, but now, being in America for all these last 40 years, that's not okay in my mind. So and for Donna, who maybe never has experienced load shedding, she would go like, what do you mean? You go for 3 hours, 8 hours a day without electricity every day?
No, cannot even. I've never even heard of that. That is like, what?
Yeah. So we have to train ourselves to have conversations where we share our beliefs, be open and be transparent. And as we share our beliefs, we get to know more of what's going on in the world. We become more tolerant. And as we become more tolerant, we become partners crossing the bridge. We help one another. It becomes easier to help one another than to fight and argue with each other about what is load shedding. I've never heard of that. That can't be true. You're making that up. Then we are stuck in the third dimension, fighting and arguing, which is what most of humanity has done for so long. But this year, we're making a new choice, and that is the choice to come inside, to begin to discover the truth of who we are, so that we can let go of these fantasies that were made up by others on the outside. And that's what's going to change the world, when we are all tolerant, but we are operating with the same truth. We have to come to the same truth. God created all of us. We are magnificent beings. All of us have that capability.
Yes, we are.
To be good. And if we can model for each other by being examples of that goodness, well, the world is is shifting. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so grateful that you were here. I look forward to putting this
what
out.
I got on?
Oh, I love that necklace. Beautiful necklace.
I wear it every day. It's very powerful.
Oh, I am so glad. Thank you so much for keeping a piece of me alive there.
Oh, girl, where's so many pieces of you? My birthday's coming up, and we're going to go to 57 Club, and we're going to do it in your honor and my birthday.
Oh.
And it's going to be sad that you're not going to be there dancing with us, but I know that there's going to be great times for you to be had out there. There's going to be times we're going to be together, so it's all right.
Absolutely. Absolutely, sister. It is meant to be. So today, on this March 1st, make a decision to be more of the loving self that you are. Make a decision to have more courage to trust your inner voice. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Love you guys.
Love you. We'll catch up soon.
Take care, sweetie. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.